Okay, so here we are for guided notes question 12, which is our chapter 1 question. You should have already completed numbers 10 and 11. If we pull up our notes and look here, you can see that 10 and 11 have to do with the sim. So there isn't a video to go with those unless you're watching this one that is about the sim straight from Amplify. So make sure that is completed. But anyway, so our chapter 1 question is, what determines the air temperature of Christchurch, New Zealand? Okay, so get that written down, guided notes question 12. Okay, so guided notes question 13 is going to be multiple slides, so just be prepared to fill in as we go. Okay, so we know the temperature changes during El Nino years in Christchurch. To understand why, we'll need to figure out what can cause a temperature to change, okay? Okay, so next you'll return to the sim with a mission to determine how to change air temperature. For this mission, you will use the energy test mode. As you see over here on the side, it's pointing to it. So you're not using the WIM map, you're not using surface test, you're using the energy test mode. Make sure you are in energy test mode. And note the initial temperatures in the energy test mode are negative, and you'll see that on the next slide here. Okay, you see how they are both negative 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, so mess around with the temperatures of the air and land. Okay, 13B in your notes. Okay, going back to looking at 13B. Okay, so it already lists out your mission, and then you have your objective here. Under what circumstances will the energy transfer from the land into the air? And objective 2, under what circumstances will the energy transfer from the air into the land? Okay, so those are 13B and C, as you can see on my slide. Take a moment and answer those questions based on what you learn in the sim. Okay, then we get to 13D. When you add energy into the land, what immediately happens to the temperature of the land? Okay, and after you stop adding that energy into the land, what happens to the temperature over time? Where does it go? Okay, so make sure you have all of that down. You've answered those questions. This is going to require you to pause the video because you're going to have to be messing around in the sim to answer these questions, but make sure those get answered. Okay, guided notes question 14. We have a vocabulary word. We have energy, and we've seen this several times throughout this year. We had a more specific definition earlier, and we'll talk about that in a second. But for this unit, energy is the ability to make things move or change. If you remember, in the past, we learned that energy is the average kinetic. Nope, never mind. I'm thinking wrong. Energy is the ability to make things move or change. So moving and transferring energy back and forth, okay, is going to change temperature, right? So, So guided notes question 15, where does the energy in the air and water come from? Okay, and we know that it's coming from the sun, right? The sun is what is transferring energy to the air and water, okay? So then this is the one I was discussing poorly on the last one. This one we have had several times in different units. Guided notes question 16, get this written down, a measure of how hot or cold something is. Temperature is also the average kinetic energy, right, in a substance. So the more kinetic energy it has, the more movement there is of the kinetic energy and the warmer it is, okay? So the less kinetic energy there is, the less movement there is, okay, of the molecules. Okay, now for guided notes question 17, this is the last one from this video. What you're going to do is you're going to read and annotate the introduction and article set about the effects of El Nino. And let me pull up your notes here when you look at this. Okay, so the reading is right here, effects of El Nino around the world. You'll notice that we want you to summarize the intro titled Different Places, Different Effects. Then you're going to move on, and even though Amplify says to choose one, we want you to read the intro and all 3 sections after the intro, and we would like you to summarize each of them, okay? So you should be summarizing the first article titled Drought in Pakistan, the second article titled Landslides in Los Angeles, and the third article titled Malaria in Colombia. So you're going to be summarizing each and every one of those.